Welcome to the Counselling Tutor Podcast, the must-listen-to podcast for students of counselling and psychotherapy. Here are your hosts, Rory Lees-Oakes and Ken Kelly.
Hi, I'm Rory, and with me as always is Ken. How are you today, Ken?
Exceptionally well. How are you, Rory?
I'm all right, thank you.
I'm
in rude health. I think that's the name of it. Rude health. I'm in very good health.
Glad to hear it. Hopefully, you listening to us are well too. You've joined us at episode 177 of the Counselling Tutor Podcast. We've got 3 topics we're going to be covering today. We're going to be starting with our student check-in, where we look at something that students are likely to come across during their studies, and we're going to be speaking there about when clients do not attend. Now, I know we get this in practice all the time, but I think it hits students really hard, specifically when they're looking for those placement hours, but something there for everybody. Then we're going to be moving on to the digital counselling revolution, where we're going to be looking at how endings when working online differ from face-to-face endings. And then we're going to be looking at practice matters, where we take something that might come up in the day-to-day practice of being a counsellor, and we have a guest lecturer, Lisa Cromar, who's going to be speaking about masking autism. So let's check in with our student check-in when clients do not attend.
Yes, I think we could all remember, I certainly can remember when I was a student and counting up those hours to completion. So for those who are listening and may not be familiar with this, those students who are in their practice year, in other words, they're practicing with clients, have to accumulate a number of practice hours to be able to pass. There's different amounts of hours for different courses, but usually it's around 100 to 140 hours. And when clients don't attend, of course, that means that you can't put that onto your sheet, and it's one less hour towards completion. So as a consequence of that, it can be really frustrating. And I think we have to understand why clients don't attend. I think there's a lot of reasons why clients don't attend, and we have to develop a resilience around that. You know, if you're in practice for long enough, you know, you will have a number of DNAs, as it's called, did not attend. In fact, some of those people may not attend again. So we have to be really, really thoughtful of why that might be, and maybe not take it to heart. I know that as someone who taught for over 10 years at practice level, I'd have students say, "I just don't know what I did wrong. It was going so well, and they didn't attend, and they didn't come back, and what did I do wrong?" So I think sometimes it's about trying to not have self-recrimination and not not blaming yourself. I think that's really, really important, Ken.
Yeah, I think when I was thinking of this topic, when clients don't attend, there's 2 sides to it. The one side might well be frustration. Maybe the frustration, and if you think of a student that is kind of on a course, you've got a supervisor, you've set the time aside, usually you're working on assignments, you've got your studies, you've got your placement, you've got your supervision, some people also working another job, you've got your family, so time is usually limited there. So somebody not arriving, it has an impact, and there can be, and it's understandable that there would be a frustration that might come up from that. But there's always another side when a client doesn't attend, and that is from the client's perspective of what reasons they are. And sometimes a way of kind of alleviating the frustration is to step out of our own frame of reference of the potential frustration that may be brought up, and have a think about what it may be like for the client and what it is, what reasons could have caused them to not arrive. And the first thing that I go to is that of concern. Are they okay? Have they had an accident? Has something happened that has made them unable to attend and unable to notify? Look for the good within the situation. I'm not good that they have an accident, but what I'm saying is that there is a valid reason, that it's not a personal reason. It's not, I'm just not going to go today. I'm not saying that never happens. There may be clients who just go, I don't want to go today. But that is also something about them and where they find themselves, what their lives must be like. If they get to the point where the person offering that help doesn't seem like an option anymore. Have they been kept at work? Are they working overtime? How many times have you maybe in your own life been late for something and been trying to get to something and not being able to get there? Maybe they're in that place. Maybe they need to look after their children. Maybe the child care didn't arrive. Maybe they haven't got somebody to depend on. Maybe they've got relatives that need them. So, I could just sit here and make up reasons why they might not arrive. But I think that the lesson here is think about that person and then their reason for not maybe being able to attend.
Absolutely. And I think also we as a majority of people now, I think, are working online. Difficulty in things like, childcare. We've just moved into a situation at the time of recording where a lot of the schools are shut. So clients may be homeschooling the children. They may not be able to find a space to be able to talk to a therapist. Not everybody has a lot of rooms that they can have as privacy. And it's always about thinking about the client and realizing that sometimes it's just a case of the client isn't ready. Sometimes clients can come to therapy and it's just not the right time for them, and then maybe a few years later they come. The time is right. In therapy, timing is everything, and just to be, as Ken said, just to be thoughtful that there may be a lot more going on in a client's life than we give them, than we understand. And of course, there's one other thing that I can't let pass without making an observation on. It may be that the client is reminded of someone of the past when they've worked with you. You've reminded them of someone else. So we cannot kind of rule out transference. I'm sure in some cases when clients come, you might just remind them of someone from the past, and they can't bring themselves to say it, so they don't come back.
Yeah. So we've discussed the frustration, and we've kind of discussed what your attitude might be when clients don't attend. Then we can go on to something that is more practical, maybe, and this is that a DNA, a do not attend, is something. It's a reality. It's a reality in placement. It is also a reality in professional practice as well. Even in private practice, when clients have paid, you will get DNAs. So it is something to plan for. What is your plan for when a client does not attend? So we can have that moment of frustration potentially. If that comes up for you, we can maybe think compassionately about how that might be for the client and kind of send that goodwill and good vibe, which helps us change our mindset. It changes our attitude. But how do we then use that time? You have a golden opportunity here. A full hour or a good part of an hour, because you're probably only going to realize you have a DNA about 10 minutes in. Okay, now they're really not coming, but you've got time. Now, if you're a student, chances are, as I kind of went into at the beginning of this, you're going to have assignment work to do. What a great opportunity to get your assignment work out. You're going to be in a confidential setting on your own, where it is silent, where you have a golden hour that you can spend on your studies. If you don't have an assignment that you can work on, maybe you can take one of your course workbooks and have a read through that with your highlighter and highlight the important parts that you may need to go over. So in placement, as a student, if you think about it, that placement time is part of your studies. It's required hours that you have to spend doing your studies. Now, you're required to submit let's use an example, maybe 100 client hours. It may take you 130 hours to get that 100 client hours because of DNAs. How do you use the other 30 hours? 30 hours is a significant amount of time. You can do an assignment in 30 hours. You can read a good book in 30 hours. So have a think about how you use that time. And of course, same challenge goes out to our qualified practitioner listeners. How do you use the time? It's a golden opportunity. If you're in practice, maybe look at your practice, or take even some personal time. Meditate, have a cup of tea, read a book. How do you use that time after working through the frustration, changing the attitude?
Absolutely. And I always used to carry a book with me. When I worked as a school counsellor, I'd always carry a good book. And if the day was conducive to a nice walk, and a client didn't attend, after informing who I needed to inform, I'd just go out and have a walk, and there's a park nearby, and just sit and just take some self-care. So there's huge amounts of opportunities in a do not attend. It's about taking what may be initially perceived as a negative situation and turning it to your advantage.
Yeah, and it's also part of self-care as well. So particularly if, again, you're a student and maybe some frustration does come up, what a wonderful topic to take into your personal development group. Now, of course, you wouldn't take any of the client presenting material or any reference to who that client may be, but you may say, I had a client who did not arrive, and this is what came up for me. That is taking ownership for our own feelings and going and using it as personal development. You know, and there's great learning. There is a great positive spin that can be gained from DNAs. They are gonna happen. It's part of being a counselor. So don't be surprised by it. And if you plan for it and have the book available that you want to read, or have the coursework available, or that assignment available, or your laptop, or whatever it is you need to be able to do that work, have it available. Have it as a plan. It's your go-to backup plan. Therefore, you won't be surprised. It's just part of the learning journey, and it can certainly be used as such. And Rory has, as always, created a super duper handout on when clients do not attend. And if you want to get Rory's super duper handout, go to counsellingtutor.com, and on the homepage, counsellingtutor.com, click on the podcasts tab, find episode 177. That's today's episode, right there on the show notes page, where we kind of give a précis of what we discuss in today's podcast. You will find the download for when clients do not attend. That is free of charge. You can just download it and have it with our compliments. If you are a member of our paid for resource, which is called Counselling Study Resource, or CSR, that's a library of lectures and resources for students on formal counselling courses. Well, log into CSR. We have a lecture on clients do not attend and a whole pile of information. Just do a search, then that'll all come up for you. And if you are not a member of CSR and you're interested in potentially seeing what that could do for you, you can get information by going to counsellingtutor.com. So there we have it. That was our student check-in, moving away from student check-in to the digital counselling revolution, where we recognise technology now forms a part of how therapy is delivered, how therapy is received by our clients. And today we're going to be looking at how endings differ when we work online.
Digital Counselling Revolution.
One of the many differences that working online brings is how we manage and experience endings. And it's something that's come up in quite a few conversations I've had with colleagues who are working online, how endings are different. And I was speaking to one colleague, and she said, you know, when I end a session, it feels quite violent. And I said, well, just explain that to me. And she said, well, usually if I was working face to face, I'd, walk the client to the reception and wish them well. And there would be a kind of process where the client would get up from the seat, go to the door, and maybe a payment to be exchanged, a new appointment to be made. Then you'd walk out, and you could see them go, and then you'd walk back into your room, maybe make your notes and just reflect. And she said online, it is literally like pressing a button. The client says goodbye, and you press the button, and they've gone. They literally vanish. And it's something that's come up quite a lot in our Facebook group about how endings are different online to face-to-face and how we manage them. And if you're not a member of our Facebook group. If you go to Facebook, type in Counselling Tutor, you'll find us. We're a closed group, but knock on the door and we'll let you in. Come on in, and you'll be with thousands of people who are studying counselling, practicing counselling, qualified colleagues, supervisors and tutors, and we have lots of interesting conversations. So really do join that group. And I think it's something we need to be thoughtful of, not just from our perception, but from the client's perception, because sometimes those little interchanges as we walk the client to the door of our practice and wave them on their journey can be quite important for clients. We need to think about that. But it is a very distinct ending. When Ken and myself finish recording this podcast, we'll give each other a bit of a wave, and then we'll press the end button, and we'll just evaporate. And it does feel quite a different way of ending human communication, Ken.
It's a very hard stop, isn't it? There's no process to the end of the ending. It's it's digital. It's a digital button press, and it's like bam, and there it is. And there's two sides to it. The one is how that is for you as the counsellor, and the other side, as you've quite rightly said, Rory, is how that is for the client. So for you, the client, for you, the counsellor, it's an opportunity to think about that, to process that, to journal that, to speak with peers about how endings feel different. Rory mentioned the Facebook page, and the reason people have been talking about it is because they're recognizing, hey, this just feels a bit different for me. It feels a little bit abrupt. It almost feels like the rug being pulled up. So there's the one side of it. The other side is how is it for the client? And you touched on that, Rory. Yeah. And it's worth thinking about this. I mean, it depends on the circumstance, but at the moment, as we're making this podcast, COVID is still pretty rampant across the world. There are lockdowns pretty much across the world. And very often, when you're working online during these kind of situations, a client might be in isolation on their own. Now, when you're having the session with them, they're suddenly communicating with another human being in a therapeutic way. And then that, boom, comes to an end. There's no walking out, getting into the car, driving and processing, and kind of integrating back into the home life. Then instantly, bam, you're back where you started. You're back before the session even started. And it's worth having a little bit of consideration of what that might bring up for the client. It's worth maybe, if appropriate, asking them, when we end our sessions, how is that for you? It's maybe, and I'm not suggesting you do this, I'm just thinking out loud, and like I often say, Rory and I are not here to tell anyone what to do or to give the answers. We just like having the conversations, two peers having conversations. Maybe there's an opportunity to suggest to a client that at the end of a session that they write down what they feel they might have got out of the session. So to give them some form of a transition between, bam, everything's gone. And so different to face-to-face, where you've got the process time, even if it's the bus ride home or even if it's the walk back from the practice or the drive, the client has time to change gear. I remember when I was studying, I would go into my studies, and I was really grateful of the drive back home from my studies, because it was where I was able to pack away everything from my studies and prepare and go back into my family and be the person I am in family. But it's so abrupt when you're working online. A button is pushed and it ends.
Absolutely. And I'm a little bit mindful. As you were talking, my mind kind of wandered a little bit, Ken, as it tends to
do. It does.
As it does. And there is a bit of a parallel here. I used to teach, as I've said numerous times before, and I've had students who've had placements working with prisoners. And they would say, how is it different? And I'd say, well, it's different because they don't have any processing time whatsoever. And crucially, and I think this is the crucial thing, they may not be able to show their emotions. How many times have I completed a session with a client and we've walked out of the practice together, and I may have been caught up just chatting with a colleague, and the client's gone on, and I've walked past where their car and they're wiping their eyes. They've had a good cry in the car. And decompress themselves, to go home to what could be a very, very difficult situation. And the parallel, I think, between working online and working with clients in their homes and working with prisoners is that you don't have that luxury. It may be the therapy takes place and then they have to open the door and go in to a domestic situation, which isn't great for them. Yeah. And they don't have that permission or that privilege of being able to express that emotion, to decompress, to be able to get rid of that and then return to what could be a difficult situation. So I think there's a lot that we're going to learn about online therapy and how it impacts on clients. I think as the research gains pace about what it is like from the client's perspective. And yeah, just pressing the button, as you said earlier, Ken, it's a binary thing. You're either in the room or you're not. There's no kind of middle ground to it. You press the button and you're gone.
Yeah, very instantaneous. And I like you started this, Rory, by sharing that somebody in the Facebook group said it's very violent. And I get that. It's so violent, isn't it? It's like, bam, there it is. There it was. It's over within a second. So there's one aspect of endings online. Of course, we couldn't speak about endings and online working without mentioning the black hole effect. And we're not going to go into it in any great detail here. But the black hole effect basically is where either you, the counsellor, suddenly just disappear or the client disappear. Can be an unplanned ending. You may never see them again. That is a very, very sudden ending, and what that might bring up for you, what that might bring up for a client. And it's really worth, if you're working online, looking into the black hole effect. And you can go to episode 163 of the Counselling Tutor Podcast. Just go to counsellingtutor.com, click on the podcast tab, and go to episode 163. And also on Counselling Tutor, if you do go on to Counselling Tutor, do a search for black hole effect. We've got a great resource on that'll kind of walk you through it. But that's another example of how an ending online differs. I mean, it just you would not find a black hole effect in face-to-face counselling. It just doesn't happen. Very sudden, and it can really leave you, the counsellor, feeling kind of at a loose end. And of course, same for the clients. So, and then the other thing about working online is even when you're working with your planned endings, so it's, I think, really important. And again, this is my opinion. This is not in any research. This is just my way of working. I feel that it's really important in my practice to really be mindful of endings, mentioning them right at the beginning. You really acknowledging the ending. If you've got a limited amount of sessions, let's say you're working for 6 sessions, you're gonna be mentioning that ending at contracting. You're going to be saying we've got 6 sessions, so you're speaking about the end. In the first session, we might be saying, so we have 6 sessions together and this is your first one. I wonder what you would like to bring today. You're mentioning the ending again. But particularly as you start getting towards the end, be checking in and reminding and really signpost the ending. For me, more so online within my practice than I might face to face, because of that suddenness of the end and because of the kind of that rug being pulled from under your feet when you really do get to the very ending. So the key stages of the ending are assessing, if you don't have kind of a certain amount of sessions, is assessing the client's readiness to end therapy, really checking in with them, whether they feel safe, ready, and okay as you come to the end, acknowledging the relationship that you have had working online, looking back, acknowledging the relationship, keeping in mind that in ending, you're not just losing, it's not just the therapy coming to the end, it's a relationship coming to the end. We talk about building rapport, we talk about building trust with another human being. It's not, that's the therapy over, there you go, right, therapy done, moving on. There's a real strong relationship where that client may have shared stuff they've not spoken to another living human being about. And that relationship, that trusting relationship, is coming to an end as well. And then the empowering, and this is for me the most important part of an ending, empowering that client for their own resilience of how they might be going forward. And it's worth looking at that before the last session, not within the last session going, so I wonder how it might look going forward for you. You might do that a few sessions before the end, saying, I reckon now as we're coming to the end of our sessions, and you might even have another 2 to go, saying, I wonder what you might do as we finish, and how you might use that time, so you're empowering, and where appropriate, of course, putting relevant services and referrals in place for your clients.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, we talk about this so much in the online world, and certainly bringing up the difference in endings, it's so important to have supervision by someone who has trained in online and telephone counselling. Because if you go to your supervisor and say, this ending, it doesn't feel it feels a bit violent, or it feels a bit sudden, and I'm left with these residual feelings, it's really important that your supervisor understands, Ken's alluded to the black hole effect, but understands the process of online therapy. There are different kind of processes at play here, and a good supervisor will understand that and be able to work with you on it. But it is so important, as Ken said, to have a good ending where possible, to make sure that you share with the clients, I think, what the relationship meant to you, because it isn't just to a professional person, a professional person meeting a client. It is a relationship. It was what makes counselling very different to, I think, other professional, patient professional relationships, if you use the word patient.
Yes, indeed. And we're speaking about endings where it comes to an end, but there's another side to endings as well, and that's the resistant ending, where you might find that the therapy is no longer therapy and is carrying on, and you have a resistance to the ending maybe coming from the client, and they might be holding on to that relationship. And here again, online, when you're speaking about online, you don't have the full picture often of what the circumstances surrounding that person may be. Of course, you're going to find information presented during your sessions. You're going to have information from your assessment, but it may be that therapy session is one of the few human touches, digital human touches, of course, that person has, and that they kind of become reliant on that. And of course, as therapists, we're not there to build reliance. We're there to build resilience. And it's about working, I guess, with that person when you are... I always think of it like this. Have you ever been at a party where it's just going on and on and on, or any event where it's going on and on and on? You go, oh, this needs to end now. I should be going home now. This is very clearly over. And how is that introduced when you're working online? And again, I think it's so important to just think about the safety of that client and empowering that client, working with them to be on their resilience for that ending. So we've spoken about the unplanned endings, spoken about the black hole effect, the difference of the endings, and we've spoken about resistant endings, stages of endings. We've covered a lot on endings here. And as Rory said, when you're working online, differs considerably. We run a course, online and telephone counselling certificate course. It is a very comprehensive course. It's 80 hours of your study time. It's got a practice element. It's where you're going to be working with buddies, trying out all the different principles. And the aim of the course is for you to work safely and ethically in service of your clients. And if you're interested in our course, we have really put it out at a very reasonable, affordable price to make it affordable to everybody. We've had over 10,000 therapists make the way through that course so far. And if you're interested, you can get more information at counsellingtutor.com. So there we have our digital counselling revolution. That's the ending of that part. See what I did there, Rory? The ending of the endings bit. Very I know, so sly, so witty. Witty Ken.
Yes. Witty Ken.
We're now going into practice matters. And practice matters, we kind of take an element that we might come across in practice. And I'm excited about today because we have got a guest speaker, Lisa Cromar, on masking autism, Rory.
Absolutely. I caught up with the fab Lisa Cromar, who's delivered 2 lectures for our counsellor CPD library on neurodiversity. And in the last lecture she made for us, she talks about masking autism. And this is what Lisa had to say.
Practice matters.
And we welcome back Lisa Cromar, who has given a wonderful lecture on masking autism. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, just tell me a little bit about your interest in autism and working with autistic clients.
Yes, no problem. As you know, Rory, I've already recorded another lecture for Counselling Tutor that was more on autism in general. But my background in autism is that at the age of 37, I was actually diagnosed as autistic. I also have children that have autism. That's how I found out I was autistic, by finding out my eldest son was autistic. So that's my kind of personal background. But that all happened during my counselling journey. So just before I started the counselling degree, I found that out. So a lot of my counselling degree, when I was looking at myself, was about the autistic side of myself, which actually is all of me.
Yes.
So that kind of led me into more research. So when I was doing my essays, I tend to research them more about autism. And then I started to work with autistic clients. And now I'm doing a PhD to try and look at and explore how counselling does work for autistic people. So that's where I've gone with it. And I've done a lot of research, and I do a bit of writing on the subject.
Well, we're very lucky. As you alluded to, you've already done a lecture on autism, and that is a must-see lecture. But the lecture you've recently done is about masking autism. What does that mean?
Okay, so masking autism basically means trying to hide autistic traits to be indistinguishable from neurotypical people. So neurotypical people basically means people that are not autistic. So most people. So we learn in school that some of our autistic traits will bring very negative attention, and many of us, a great deal of us, will experience bullying, really for being who we really are. And that takes its toll, and eventually you learn to hide those parts of yourself, and you try and just kind of mimic and act like the neurotypical people that are around you. But what that means is you're never yourself when you're doing that, and it takes a great deal of energy to hide who you really are, and it's very bad on your mental health. So that's in a nutshell what masking is.
Yes, you're being somebody you're not.
Exactly.
To use a counselling term, you're being incongruent.
Incongruent, indeed. Yes, that was a good word to learn.
Yes, I'm sure it had some resonance in your own journey.
It did, yeah.
Yeah. So, what are we likely to see as a therapist working with a client, and they may have a sense that the client isn't, and we'll use the term not neurotypical. What kind of signs may a therapist pick up from the client?
Oh, signs. This is a difficult one, because as an autistic person, I very much I find it easier to spot another autistic person.
Yes.
It's like, it's just some kind of sense that you get as an autistic person. But it's people kind of saying that they are hiding parts of themselves, and starting to pick up that they might apologize for how they speak, or that they say that's what they do, that they can't let their real selves be known. And they might start to talk about things like finding busy places difficult, finding sensory things difficult. So maybe you've got a college student or a school child who can't really go into their school canteen because they find it too noisy. So they might say a few things like that they are definitely oversensitive to sensory input. And they might be struggling a lot with understanding what others say. So it might be that they're forming a pattern of, well, I didn't mean to say that, they read me the wrong way.
Yes.
But that happens a lot. Or they then stop talking altogether. Or they might say that at times they can't talk at all.
Yes.
And you might pick up on that they just seem to find normal life very exhausting.
Yes.
So I guess that's a few of the things.
Yeah, it's a bit like being a stranger in a strange land.
I mean, a lot of us describe it as feeling like an alien. So that would be a big clue for me. If someone was there saying that they felt like an alien, like everyone else knew how to be and they don't, I hear that a lot.
So how can a therapist accommodate somebody who they believe may be autistic? Maybe the client's declared that and said, I'm a neurodiverse person, or uses the phrase autistic. What is helpful for what interventions are helpful for a therapist to use with somebody who is autistic?
So I find a lot of creative work in the counselling room can be really useful, especially as sometimes verbal communication isn't the best thing for us, because that's one of the things with autism is that we can struggle with verbal communication. So sometimes bringing some creativity into it can just help with that verbal communication, or through it might just be the creative piece itself helps a lot. Being aware of autism, so making sure that you've done your research, attending CPD like this, so that you can find out a few things that can help, because the way we communicate can be different. So like in third language should be avoided, be it sort of very clear black and white communication. Yes. Not thinking we're just going to get the gist of it, and also sometimes we can have slower processing speed, so it might be that you just kind of make sure that you're only kind of giving one type of reflection in one go, not lots of things in one go.
Yes.
That can help.
Yeah, and of course, not asking multiple questions is always a good discipline being a therapist.
Absolutely.
If you have to ask a question, make sure you only ask one.
Yes.
And being very, very clear. Do you think it's important that, a client who's masking and trying to fit into a neurotypical world, that you help them gain acceptance of who they are, that the part on the therapist's mind may be helping them, accept their own neurodiversity?
Absolutely. I think it's vital. If you look at social identity theory in that as well, positive autism identity is tied into social identity. So us having a good view of our own identity, and the group around us having a good view of our identity, directly affects our self-esteem. So that's not just us that need to work on that as the autistic people, but certainly moving into the community that is our therapist, and that sort of environment, that can make a big difference. So if you are talking positively about autism, that's going to help. And to talk positively about it, you kind of need to know what the language is, a bit about it, make sure that you've adapted and you're being accessible for us. It's not just the things you say, it's how you look after us in that room, and making sure there's accommodations have been made for us to know, I am accepted in this space.
Yes.
As well as their outside relationships, that talking positively and maybe helping them with outside relationships by, if they bring something up, maybe sharing some resources that they can share with the people around them, so that they start to get a lot of people being more positive about that autism, because society isn't particularly positive about autism.
No. I think it's interesting. What has helped me through the years is that being told what is helpful to someone who's autistic, and adapting my speech patterns has improved relationships on a number of levels.
Yeah.
And it does, and I'll be honest, it takes a bit of work, because it is a little like adapting, not completely, but a little like adapting slightly different language or patois. But the benefits are brilliant, because the person feels heard, respected, understood, and vindicated. I think that it's all right to be them.
Yeah, and we bring some very positive skills to society. We might come across differently, but we can see things from outside the box. We'll often be the ones that comes up with an innovative idea.
Yes.
So it's in society's best interest that autism is moved up to a more positive level, so has a more positive identity. But everybody has to be involved with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a real case of you don't know what you don't know. I'm sure your podcast and your lectures have helped huge amounts of people really kind of take stock of how they interact with people. And the word awareness is sometimes overused, but I don't think it could be overused in this case. Being aware that you have someone and they think differently, and you need to tune in as a therapist. You need to plug in and tune in to the clients.
Absolutely. So, awareness and acceptance is so vital.
Absolutely. Well, on that awareness and acceptance, I thank you very much for your time. The lecture is a must watch. And Lisa Cromar, thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Lisa Cromar and to you, Rory, for hosting that interview. It's such an important topic. I think neurodiversity, it's almost become one of the buzzwords recently. I think about when I started my studies, 2013-ish, I think I graduated, so it would have been before that. I don't recall seeing the word neurodiversity about, to be honest with you, Rory. But now it is common language. It's something that we have to understand. It's always been there. And I think it's how society is developing and how we're growing and how research is informing practice and the importance, we say this so often, of continuing professional development. And I applaud you listening to this podcast, because by listening to it, you are doing continuing professional development. And it's how we kind of educate ourselves in better service of our clients.
Yes, absolutely. And you're right in lots of areas of diversity, Ken. We are now seeing specific areas where therapists really need to address and understand the individuals. And, I've always said that every time you meet a client, you're meeting another, and understanding that client in their entirety. And that includes their diversity is just so important. We have to see all our client and understand to the best we can our client's worldview. That's, frame of reference and empathy. So I think that, neurodiversity or diversity in any form is really, really important. So I would conclude with Ken, or agree with Ken, that by listening to this and doing your CPD, you're working really, really hard and ethically in the service of your clients.
Yes, and of course, if you're interested in finding out more about our CPD library for qualified therapists, you can get more information by going to counsellingtutor.com. All the information there is there. It's basically a resource library that is absolutely jam-packed, full of hundreds and hundreds of hours of informed lectures, all with learning outcomes from experts in the field. And the aim is one aim only, and that is to sharpen our competence so that we are better able to serve our clients.
Yeah, absolutely, Ken. Wise words to conclude this very diverse podcast. We started off speaking about when clients do not attend, and then we looked at endings and the different forms of endings and endings that are specific to online therapy. And then finally, we concluded with the fab interview with Lisa Cromar, who talked about masking autism. And as always, stay grounded, stay safe, and embrace diversity.
If you're a qualified counsellor or psychotherapist, then why not check out the Counsellor CPD Library? Stay current with your CPD requirements with over 150 hours of academically rigorous, on-demand lectures you can stream to your device. Joining Counselor CPD will expand your skill set to create a more specialised, highly rewarding practice. For more information on the Counselor CPD Library, visit counsellingtutor.com.
Thank you for listening to the Counselling Tutor Podcast. Find the show notes for this episode on our website at www.counsellingtutor.com.